Hi, everybody, and welcome again to a new edition of the Ken Seminar Series of this fall 2025. Today, we are delighted to introduce Professor Paulo Pereirinha. Professor Pereirinha is an associate professor at the Institute Superior de Engenharia de Coimbra, ISEC, the Polytechnic Institute of Coimbra in Portugal, and he holds a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Coimbra. He's also a senior member of IEEE and is the chair of the Portuguese chapter of IEEE VTS and also a researcher at INESC Coimbra. Professor Pereirinha is also the co-founder and president of the Portuguese Electric Vehicle Association, the APVE, and he coordinates the working group on DC measurement at charging points for EVs, appointed by the Portuguese Energy Services Regulatory Authority, ERSC. His research mainly focuses in electric vehicles, and today he's going to be sharing insights on road electric mobility, challenges, and opportunities with insights from Portugal. Having said that, Professor Coimbra, welcome to ICT. We are looking forward to hearing from your presentation. Help me receive Professor Coimbra with a warm welcome. Professor Pereirinha, floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Johan. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you perfectly, Professor.
Okay, very well. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I see you have a nice room with a significant number of people. So what I will be talking is a little bit about about road electric mobility, some challenges and opportunities with some insights from Portugal. Well, the presentations were already done. I will start just to recall a little bit of the history of electric mobility. As you probably know, electric vehicles are not something that was invented or were invented in the last 15 years or 20 years, but they came back from the same time as the first internal combustion engine vehicles and also some steam vehicles. There was a competition by the beginning of 20th century with some early models. You can see here, for example, the never satisfied, the first vehicle of all type. It was an electric vehicle, but the first one to reach the mark of 100 kilometers per hour. Then we had Detroit Electric, Baker. We had many models, but due to several problems, the discovery of cheap oil in Texas, the Second World War, the expansion of the roads between cities, the need to fuel everywhere, the invention of the production chain by Ford and the 4T and some other things. The electric vehicles almost disappeared during, let's say, 100 years. There were some prototypes, some experiences in those years, but we could say that the first or the rebirth of the electric mobility started with EV1 in 1996 or around 1996, with also, well, there is a quite interesting video about this car called Who Killed the Electric Car. It was a revolutionary vehicle. You can see very aerodynamics with many tricks to improve the energy consumption and so on that the most efficient cars now use. This arrow also that later gave origin to Tesla Roadster, you can see here. And so we could say that until these vehicles appeared, there was a dark age for the electric vehicles. Around the year 2000, there was a renewed interest in electric mobility, not pure electric, but hybrid electric vehicles with Prius and Civic. And then the real mass scale production vehicles, Tesla Roadster and Nissan Leaf. We have here the slide. Can you see my mouse moving on the screen? Can you see the mouse in screen? Oh, I cannot.
We can see your mouse.
Okay, thank you very much. So this was one of the first conference organized in Europe. That was in Portugal, in a very nice city. And you can see here some of the models that we had at the time: the Prius, the Honda, this minibus that went from 2003 up to 2 years ago with lead-acid batteries and so on. Well, things have changed dramatically since the first electric vehicles, since even those first electric vehicles on the 21st century. And so you can see the sales in thousands of vehicles, or I would say plug-in vehicles, that mean battery electric vehicles plus plug-in electric vehicles. There has been a constant increase in the last years, you can see. In 2023, around 14 million were sold worldwide. I kept this slide because it gives us an idea of the share between battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. It's about 70%, 30%, 75, 25, so we're still around this. And you can see here the share at world level of passenger vehicles. In 2023, there was around 16% of all the passenger cars sold worldwide was or were plug-in electric vehicles. Another important aspect is if we look at the sales from the regional point of view. We can see that of the around 18 million plug-in electric vehicles sold last year, nearly 10 million were in China, 3.8 million in Europe, 2.5 million in the United States, and then the rest of the world doesn't have a big expression. So you can see that China really leads the electrification of mobility. Okay, we can see also it's also interesting to see the effect of the decrease of subsidies in China this year that interrupt the growth rate, the COVID effect also. Okay, but this is the general the global sales for this year of 2025. Well, the forecasts vary, but it's expected to have between 20 and 22 million plug-in electric vehicles. That means battery plus plug-in hybrid. So even though the growth rate is not increasing so much, or it starts to decrease, they are still increasing. Okay. Another interesting aspect at global level, we have seen that China sells more than 50% of all the cars. It's also interesting to see the brands that sell the higher number and the models. This is from 2023. This graphic is cut here, so this bar from BOID should be around here. But you can see, if we consider all the vehicles, including the plug-in, BYD, it's the brand that sold the highest number in 2023. And this year, from January to July, so first semester, again, BYD is taking the lead. Then we have Tesla, Geely, which is also Chinese, Wuling, Chinese, Volkswagen, BMW, and you can see most of them are Chinese. So I'll have to take care to not take too much time. So by model, you can see that on the 20 most sold vehicles worldwide, 9 are from BYD. So why have we had this growing expansion of the electric mobility? Well, there are several reasons, as you are for sure aware. Environmental concerns, and we can think of this in the pollution point of view and CO2 point of view, greenhouse gas emissions, which people sometimes make some confusion, but it's not exactly the same thing. CO2, it's related, well, most people think that it's related to climate change. Others put some questions on this, but nevertheless, there is also pollution, many pollutants that affect directly human health and so on. And you can see here from the CO2 point of view, of course, the emissions are quite different from the high internal combustion engine vehicles and from the battery electric vehicles. It depends a lot on where we are in the world, Europe, United States, China, and India. But there is a clear advantage in terms of life cycle greenhouse gases emissions for the battery electric vehicles. This regarding 2021. But as the technology will improve, of course, we'll have a decrease for the internal combustion engine vehicles, but a bigger increase for the battery electric vehicles, since the electric vehicles, we could say that is a technology that really is being developed in the last 15 years, not in the last 120 or 25 like the internal combustion engine vehicles. So we are already in an amazing status of regarding the electric vehicles, but there is quite room for improvement. Okay, for the United States, cars tend to be bigger. The electricity grid tends to have higher content of carbon, but still the battery electric vehicles have much less emissions, and it will improve. China, which has its electrical grid, strongly depending also in coal, so the emissions are worse, but there is an advantage. And as there is a cleaning of the electricity production, this will improve. And even in India, there is an advantage for battery electric vehicles. So this is from the CO2 point of view. From the health concerns, from the pollution, of course, the internal combustion engine vehicles are not the only source of pollution, but they are an important source of pollution, and they are strongly concentrated within the cities. And so the pollution emitted by a car has a high impact because it will very likely be inside a city. So there are many effects on the health, in the respiratory system, on the cardiovascular diseases, effects on liver, impacts on reproductive system, and so on, lungs, etc. So produced by the different pollution or pollutants resulting from directly or indirectly from the combustion of fuel. Other reasons, and for me a very important reason besides the health, it's the efficiency, the energy efficiency. The electric vehicles, due to the efficiency of the electric motor, have much higher efficiency than internal combustion engine vehicles. So this is from a paper, a study that I've done. Well, not a paper, it's an article for an encyclopedia. But if we compare diesel, gasoline, or battery electric vehicles, of course, it depends on how you produce the energy, renewable energy, or good energy generation, or normal energy generation, electrical energy, so with a big mix of coal. But in the end, I suppose you are aware with the concepts of well to tank. It means the efficiency of the fuel chain. So since we extract the oil from the well, refine it, transport until it reaches the fuel station. So for fossil fuel, there are not many losses, and so we have higher efficiency. The problem is in the tank to wheel. It means what happens inside the vehicle. So diesel engine can have an efficiency of average efficiency of 19%, 20%, a gasoline of 16. And so if we multiply this by this, we get the well-to-wheel efficiency. So of all the energy that is in the crude, in the oil that is extracted, we get 17% reaching the wheels, a gasoline a little bit less, and if we have an electric vehicle with renewable energy, we can have 67%, and we can recover also something from regenerative braking. So we get, let's say, 2, 3, 4 times more kilometers from the same energy, from the same amount of energy. Of course, it depends on how we produce electricity. Well, so this has led to some restrictions, some bans, some mandates. Some have been changing in the United States. Europe is pledged to have only zero emission vehicle sales from 2035. Let's see if it stands, because there is some discussion now. But so there is this trend of electrification of mobility. In terms of vehicles forecast sales, we can see that, well, we have seen sales numbers up to here, let's say 18 million last year. This year expected, according to, in this case, this site, around 22, some points for 20, we'll see, which is a share, a global share of battery plus plug-in, a total share of this year of around 23%. That means 1 in 4 cars sold worldwide is a plug-in electric vehicle. It's expected. So, and this share is expected to grow in the next years, and until, well, for sure there will be always some internal combustion engine vehicles sold, but the trend is to go towards the electrification of mobility. Okay, so we see here the total of vehicles sold or expected to be sold, okay, light vehicles. And we see that the share of the BEV is increasing. Also, there is a trend, or it is expected that we go for more for the battery electric vehicles than for the plug-in hybrid electric. Well, we'll see. These are forecasts. Nobody knows exactly, but the trend is this one. And for talking about the sales, here we are talking about commercial vehicles. So we can say that they are a little bit behind the passenger vehicles, but we have here for light-duty fuel cell, well, electric and fuel cell vans, trucks, and buses. Fuel cell are very residual, but we see we have around 1 million light-duty commercial vehicles this year. It's expected. Medium and heavy-duty vehicles, it's a little bit behind, or a lot behind, because these are the most difficult to electrify because they need huge quantities of energy. Let's say a 40-ton car, 40-ton truck needs, let's say, it depends on the distance, but up to 2 megawatt hour of energy, which means a huge quantity of batteries. So the technology should improve a little bit more. I mean, the energy density, so the energy that we can put in a certain place, certain volume, and with certain weight. Regarding the buses, the situation is very different. So this year, around 43% of all the buses, well, city buses, sold worldwide were electric buses. Okay, so we are already approaching 50%. Okay, in China, it's not only city buses but also coaches and intercity buses. Well, we have seen some an overview of the situation of vehicles, but there are some situations, some issues, some challenges. One challenge for the rest of the world is that China really dominates not only the number of electric car sales, okay? They tend to export a lot, but also all the electric vehicle chain, starting by the raw materials, well, starting from mining, refination, raw materials, the production of cathodes and anodes of the batteries, of the cells, of the cell batteries. You can see, well, 70% roughly of the cathodes and anodes produced worldwide are from China. The cathodes here, anodes here. Europe, North America, well, the rest of the Asia has some production. Battery manufacturing, well, we see here some of the anodes produced in China are used, for example, in Europe for battery manufacturing, the electric car manufacturing, and the sales. So this is a problem, and I think that, if you allow me, trunk options regarding the tariffs and regarding electric vehicles have also to do with this situation. Okay. Even in Europe, we are considering or starting to apply some tariffs, less, but because this situation is It's something that worries lots of people. Well, should worry a little bit all of us. But this is not what I wanted to talk especially today. So I would like to talk about issues in the grid, the electrical grid, um, in particular at distribution level, local level. It depends. I know that the grid, the transportation grid, high voltage, high power. Well, it depends on where we are. I think there are some issues in the grid in the United States. We are also having some issues in the grid in Europe, but I would say that at least in Europe, the question, or at least in Portugal, the question is not so much the transportation grid, but the distribution grid at local level. Because as you can see here, this is a study that a student of us had done already some years ago. If we have a residential area with, let's say, 35 houses with a power transformers, let's say a few 100 kilowatt or something, this is the typical, the red curve, it's the typical diagram, load diagram during the day. So since midnight until 23, let's say 11 p.m. So this is in a residential area, there is, let's say, a not big consumption during the day. At the end of the day, when people reach home, starts cooking, turns on the lights, starts doing washing machines and things like that. So this is a typical load diagram for let's say a residential area in Portugal. So we have done these studies for 35 houses, and we have studied the impact of the consumption if we have, sorry, this is in Portuguese, 50% of the cars are EV, vehicle electric, let's say, if 75% are EV, or if all the cars are EV. So if people at the end of the day starts reaching home and starts plugging in their cars in an uncontrolled manner, this is for winter, what we have is that we had already a peak at this time of the day. So let's say that the power transformer was 150 kilowatt. During this time of the day, we were not very far from the peak, but if people starts charging the vehicles, there will be an overcharging of the power transformer, of the cables, distribution cables, and so on. So we should avoid this. How can we do that? Well, we can try to convince the users, people, not to charge immediately when they reach home. Instead of starting at 6 p.m., they could start charging, let's say, at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. Okay, this can displace the peak. So you can see here we would have a peak of 220. Here the peak is already smaller, 170. But if the power transformer, let's say, is of 150, then we would need to change the power transformer, change cables, have a very huge investment. So the idea, we can try to do this with tariff incentives. So people sell the energy cheaper here than here. Or we can try to fill the values of the load diagram with some other incentives. And we can see here in the winter and summer, the load diagram is different. And in this case, we do not need to increase the power transformer. We do not need to change the grid, the distribution grid, which allows us to spare a lot of money. And also better use the installed capacity. So this is let's say load management is something that is mandatory that is done as the electrification of transportation increases. Okay, so what can we, and this is based in this paper of we published in IEEE VPPC 2024. So we have done a survey on how can we use the electric vehicles as flexibility providers for the electric distribution grid. Well, this summarizes the paper. We have main challenges, we have some opportunities and some trends. We have technical challenges, economic, regulatory and policy aspects, and social impacts as challenges. Regarding the opportunities, we have the demand response programs, the one that I've shown you, to try to displace the charging time, trying to displace the load. There is also the vehicle-to-G technology. Well, I'm sorry, I do not know what is your level of knowledge on all these aspects. Possibly you have already heard a lot of about this or not. So I'm not totally sure if I'm telling you something that is quite obvious for you or it's something new. So sorry, but that's what I'm proposing here for you to consider. Also, some important opportunities is the renewable energy integration. It depends on where we are, but at least in Portugal, in some regions, we are reaching the limit of Portugal, Spain, and other countries, the limit of renewable energy integration. We have periods in which we have too much electrical energy production. That means, for example, we had to offer the electricity to the Spanish, our neighbors, because we don't have capacity to use all the energy that wind, wind generators or solar panels produce. And we don't have capacity, no more capacity to store it in hydraulic power plants. So using the electric vehicles as a controllable load and also as a stationary storage of energy, we can increase the integration of renewable energy in the grid. And this is quite important. I don't know if you are aware, but in April, 16 April of this year, we had a total blackout in Portugal and Spain. It means all the grid went down in Portugal and Spain. And it took it, and the south of France also a little bit. It's something that never happened before. And it took us in some hours to redress the grid, to reestablish the electrical power. In some more remote regions in Portugal, it took that's almost 1 day, 22 hours to reestablish, and it started to pose problems, serious problems. No communications, no electricity, no gas in some regions. So luckily, the things didn't, no cash machines, no credit card transactions. You see, if it went more 2 or 3 days, it would be very complicated. So and I'm talking about this because it was also attributed, or mainly attributed, there is not a final report, but the last reports point to problems in the renewable energy generation. That was too much, and it increased the voltage, and all the protections start tripping and leaving the power plants out. Well, these are some opportunities, and smart charging infrastructure, grid service provision. Some trends are related to battery technology, electric vehicle market growth, policy and regulatory landscape, social acceptance and behavior change. So I guess I'll have to go fast on this, but you have that in that paper. So there are, from the technical point of view, there are barriers to integration, technical ones, so related to operational challenges, planning, smart charging, energy storage, questions related with infrastructure compatibility, voltage, power quality, communication protocols, active load and grid congestion. If we increase the total amount of energy in the grid, there might be some grid congestion, device deterioration, active power losses. Regarding economic challenges, well, there is the initial expense, infrastructure investment, the market dynamics. We can see that, well, the greater initial expense is related to high purchase price of the electric vehicles. There might be some need for financial incentives that many countries have. Also, United States had just until now, more or less. There are grid integration costs. There might be needed some distribution system reinforcements, but the most clever strategy is try to avoid this. Okay, there is a need for smart grid technologies. We need, since the model is changing from a centralized production, and we need the grid to be smart to monitor all the power flow on the grid, to be able to also get power from the electric vehicles and so on. So there are many economic challenges. We need to find funding mechanisms and so on. Regulatory aspects. Well, we have lots of rules, standards, regulations that must work together, and so it's not easy. It's not easy to collaborate, to get collaboration among stakeholders. It needs lots of standardization, fiscal incentives, and so on. There are also some important social impacts of EV integration. From one hand, it's a positive one, it's the improved urban environment. It means less pollution, it means less noise. Typically, an electric vehicle, it's easier to drive, so it provides enhanced mobility. Some cars can be driven with only one pedal, so even people with leg deficiency can drive it. But there are equity concerns because the electric vehicles tend to be more expensive than the internal combustion engine vehicles, at least at the moment. And there is all the social question related with job displacement. There is a whole industry related to fossil fuel, related to internal combustion engine vehicles that will have some very serious challenges. Well, regarding the opportunities, we have already mentioned a little bit. One, and this is just some topics. One is really the vehicle to grid. So to use the vehicles as mobile energy storage units, they can discharge the stored energy back to the grid during peak demand periods, enhanced grid stability, providing enhanced grid stability and resilience. Can be also used from an economic point of view. Demand response, adjusting the charging patterns depending based on grid signals and economic stimulus, helping to balance electricity supply and demand. So this is something very powerful, even before vehicle to grid. Well, renewable energy integration, as I have already mentioned, this allows us to increase the share of electric renewable energy production and be able to manage it, and can the electric vehicles to work for grid resilience and flexibility. Okay, so the trends will be in the battery technology to increase the energy density, to be able to increase the charging speed, and improve the safety and durability of the batteries. So this is something that we are seeing every day. We are seeing this every day in terms of energy density, of charging times, in terms of maybe not lithium, sodium ion batteries in terms of safety also. But also the lithium ion are improving the safety and the reliability. There will be for sure a growth in the electric vehicle market. I've shown you some forecasts, huge investments, and there will be an evolution in the policy and regulatory landscape. So it depends on the countries, on the regions, but the target with some incentives, some mandates, the development of the charging infrastructure, and some emission and reduction targets. Okay, for it, it's need to public perception and awareness to include the EVs in lifestyle. And I would say conclusion of this paper. So the foundations of electrical mobility transformation is based in technological advancements, depend on the market dynamics, can contribute to infrastructure resilience, needs evolution of the policy framework and social acceptance. I would finish, because I'm reaching the limit, with some projects. This is a project that I've been working related to the certification of the DC energy used in the charges. The problem is that we have certified AC charge meters, but not DC meters certified. So there is not, I'm talking from the European point of view, there is not certification for the meters. And so in case of dispute, of legal dispute, if someone says I'm charging 10 kilowatt hour and you are charging me 11, there is it's complicated to regulate that. So we have been working in a project. We developed some prototypes first to measure the energy with calibrated systems, to measure the energy that goes from the charging station to the vehicle. Now there are, after our start of our work, commercial products are starting to appear, and there in Portugal there is already some legislation allowing to measure or to certify the meters. Okay, so this is one project. I have here another example of another project. It's from EDP. EDP, it's Electricity of Portugal, a Portuguese company that has also some facilities in the United States and in other countries. It's a V2G pilot project combined with solar and building energy systems. And the objective was to test the vehicle to grid charging and discharging, also including renewables, battery integration with an holistic building integration and vehicle to grid. They had some challenges because the charging plug that is prepared to vehicle to grid since the beginning is CHAdeMO, used in the Japanese cars, Nissan Leaf. But this standard is shifting away, so it's disappearing. So you have CCS2 in Europe, you have CCS1 in the United States, but nevertheless, they were in this project be able to have a 35, 1/3 reduction in the peak demand during the high load periods. They were able to shift 60% of the charging to off-peak hours, so reducing operational costs. And they were able to reduce the cost savings of electric vehicles, let's say to reduce 1/4. Okay, so that they are able to validate the concept. This is another project. It's not from me, it's from a colleague that is in the board of Electric Vehicle Association, Portuguese Electric Vehicle. It's a European project. The object is, well, people, it's management for carbon neutrality. But the objective here is to have grids for planning, tools for grid planning, considering the flexibility, the place of the cars, and so on. And so they developed, for example, a tool to simulate. This is Lisbon, Portugal capital, Lisbon downtown. So a tool to choose the optimal location of charging stations, considering all these aspects. They have some pilot sites. And well, this is a project that I've with some students or one student. It's to simulate an electric bus with, so it's just to show you some more detailed projects, more in terms of hardware, let's say, and simulation. So it's to simulate the battery degradation of electric bus that we have in Coimbra, my town, downtown. And so we use this technique, which is energetic macroscopic representation, showing the power flow in the vehicle and so on. So these details. So this is my last slide. There are many projects regarding smart charging, vehicle-to-grid capabilities in different parts of the world with different perspectives. As you can see here, this is from Global EV Outlook 2025, if you want to look. Well, I think we are reaching the end of my time, or we have already passed. So if you have some questions, please be free to ask.
Thanks for your presentation, Professor Pereirinha.
Thank you.
We will allow time for a couple of questions from the audience in case anybody wants to ask a question now.
I'm having difficulty on hearing you.
Oh, okay.
I hear, but low.
Can you hear me better now?
Better, much better.
Okay, great. Do we have any question in the audience? Go ahead, William.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your presentation. On slide 7, you show the difference between the greenhouse gases emissions between the internal combustion engine vehicles, and the battery electric vehicles. So I'm curious to observe that in the case of India, the difference between the ICEV and the battery electric vehicles is much lower than in the other cases. So I wanted to ask you if you have any insights on what is the reason for that.
Well, the reason it's, well, this is a life cycle study. It means it considers the fuel or electricity production, as you can see here. It considers the fuel consumption within the car, so during operation. It considers also the maintenance of the vehicle and the vehicle manufacturer, okay? And in the case of the electric vehicles, it considers also separately the battery manufacturer, okay? As you can see, the yellow part. The difference is in the fuel electricity production, okay? So it depends on what is the primary source of energy used to produce the electricity. If it's coal, it will have a much higher green CO2 emissions, okay? If it's other fossil fuel, natural gas, it will have less. If it has some important part of nuclear energy, of hydraulic power plants, and also of solar energy and PV, so PV, solar energy, and wind energy, which is the case in Europe. This part that regards the emissions associated with the electricity production, well, it's much higher in India than in China or in the United States or in Europe. But nevertheless, it's better than the internal combustion engine vehicles. And as the electricity production becomes, let's say, cleaner and more renewable or more efficient, the difference is expected to increase. Okay?
Thanks, Professor.
You're welcome.
Okay. We can allow for one more question from the room. Go ahead, Hon.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Maybe slide 16. And
16?
It's about grid distribution. So my question is, from your perspective, how should we balance investment between the traditional grid reinforcement and the smart grid technologies for EV integration? Yes.
How should we balance the investment?
Yes, between the traditional grid distribution reinforcement and the smart grid technologies. Yes.
Well, it depends on if we can do the job with the minimum investment, it will be perfect. Okay, that's engineering. Okay, so it depends how we can do that. For being able to do something like this, the displacement of load, we need some strategies. We need some regulatory frame. We need regulations allowing, for example. Well, this is something simple. It's just to have two different prices of the electricity during the day and during the night. If I want more flexibility, I might need some contracts and need legislation allowing that. I need some contracts that allows me to say, okay, the price, it's not fixed, but when I send you, let's say the price is 10 cents per kilowatt hour or whatever, but I can send higher prices, lower prices, and you deal with that. So it's more a stimulus. So for that, we need systems that allow the vehicles to receive this stimulus. We need automatic systems, but that is not really in the grid. If we want to, anyway, but we need to know the traffic, the power flow in all the points of the grid. If we want to put vehicle to grid, then we need to increase, let's say, the level of smartness of the grid. So we need, and since the power flow changes direction, the protections might have to be also changed. But here we are not yet talking about changing or increasing the power of transformers and changing cables. It's more protections, monitoring systems, and so on. So the balance, I don't know if I have an answer for that. So it has to be analyzed, I would say. If we can avoid to change the infrastructure, the physical, the great devices, the transformers, the cables, it would be less expensive, okay? But on the other hand, if the grid is 50 years old or something, well, we'll need to do that someday.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Pereirinha, for
Yeah.
being today with us. It's time now to close the seminar for today's edition, but thank you again, and we really look forward to hearing more from you in the upcoming semesters here. Thank you so much again, and help me say goodbye to Professor Pereirinha.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you.